Welcome aboard, everybody. I'm Rick Maines, otherwise known as Sergeant M. Primo has asked me today to take over his class for him, so was thinking of a few things to do, and of course skulls and fire and all that, of course, come to mind, but I wanted something that wasn't going to take a whole lot of your time today. So I thought I've been playing around with this rust and rivets technique for a while, and the way I've done it in the past is a highlight with white, but I've started looking at it and noticed that was a little flat looking when you look at it outside. Yeah, the highlight's white, but when you get it out in the sun, it's really not a highlight. It becomes dull. But without further ado, I did want to extend my condolences to the family of Jaime Rodriguez, who sadly passed away yesterday. I know the whole airbrush community is just reeling with this news and completely gutted, and my thoughts and prayers are with Jaime and his family and everybody that this has affected. Although this is something that's normally reserved for military funerals, I do feel that it's appropriate, and we will be taking just a quick moment of silence here in remembrance for our friend who's passed, and followed by the playing of taps. Rest in peace, Jaime. There is a thread on the Airbrush forum if anybody has had interactions with Jaime, if you spoke to him, if you met him in person. Feel free to go over there to the forum and share some of your experiences. What he was like when you met him. Did you learn anything? Did you get a chance to paint with him? So feel free to go over there and put something out there. So what are we going to need for today? Well, obviously a panel. This is a top to an old computer case. Okay, I've used it over and over and over and over and over again. Base this out in an aluminum base fine from AutoAir with the Wicked Jet Black as a base. So we're going to go ahead and do some rust and some rivets, and I hope that this technique that I found will kind of I don't know, maybe it's not new, I don't know, but hope that this technique that I found that I'm going to share help somebody out. So what we'll need aside from the panel is some I'll be using Autoborn red oxide for my rust color. I'll also be adding some brown into that. I have a brown from Wicked, but if you have your own mix, feel free to use that. I'll be using, I know the bottle says 4011 reducer, but this is black. I'll be using that. It's going to be way over reduced, and I'll probably even add a couple drops of the transparent base. Everything will be reduced with 4011 reducer. I know it's in a Wicked bottle, but it's 4011 reducer from AutoAir. So let's jump into it. The stencils I'll be using for my rivets, circle stencil from Airsick. Use whatever stencil you have, or if you've cut something out, feel free to use that. And for some added texture, I'll be using some of the grunge stencils from Airsick Stencils. One, two, three, and those are the three that I have. But if you don't have these stencils, you can, there are lots of different ways of creating texture. If you have a plastic bag, you can use that. You have an old torn up Scotch-Brite, you can use that. So let's use my dagger. Still had some cleaner in there. Just cleaning these out last night. Why am I starting off with the rust color? I'm not into the rust yet. Go ahead and throw some black into your airbrush. And I'm probably only adding, 4 or 5 drops. There's really not much paint in there at all. And at this point, it is sort of a weak black, but it's not as weak as I'll make it when I go to do the shadows and the highlights. I'm actually going to be highlighting with the black, believe it or not. I know that's kind of counterintuitive, but that's the way that I found that that this works out. So turn the computer here so I can see the chat a little better. I'm going to start here, and we're going to shadow just the bottom half of the rivet. And I'm not going to be actually blowing all the way up. I'm actually only going to be spraying about maybe a quarter of the way up the stencil. Our overspray will carry and get the shadow. And these will be flathead rivets. So there is our one rivet. I guess I can go ahead and make all of them, huh? So I've got 4 sections. Might as well use them. It's important to note also, where your light source is coming from. Obviously, since my shadow is here, my light source is coming from the top left and down. I know the rivets do look unfinished at this point, but okay. Okay, so now that we have our basic rivet shapes kind of fogged in. Where else are we going to go with these? What else can we do? Well, normally, and I've even posted a tutorial on it on my YouTube page. Normally, what you would do is go in with white and highlight the top side, and you can see I even have white on there where I've used this stencil in a tutorial before. But as I said in the opening, if you take this panel outside, of course here under natural lights, under shop lights, it's under shop lights, it's going to look fine. But if you take this out in the sun, that white highlight, that white that you would normally put here, is going to make this thing look flat because you're not seeing through to the silver base. Which is really what we want. And if this were a real panel that's actually been riveted and rusted, you wouldn't see white, you would see the light reflecting off of the metal. So what we're going to do is we're not going to go in with white here. We're actually going to take and lay this positive side of this stencil right over our rivet. And let me know what, give me a thumbs up. Who's panning along? Is anybody panning along? Cool. CBG, let me, if you are panning along and I happen to get ahead of you, I will look over from time to time. If I happen to get ahead of you, say so in the chat. I'll look over from time to time and check it. And we'll pause if needed. But we'll take this, which will be the positive of our stencil, lay it right over the rivet. And now what we're going to do is we're going to create a shadow here. You can see that. We're going to create a shadow here where our light source comes from. Because when this rivet got punched down, you're going to have a shadow up here. You're going to have a shadow up there in that corner. Okay, Exodus, no problem. So we're going to lightly spray a shadow. What we're doing is creating the rest of that rivet through negative space. You don't have to go crazy on it. It's very, very light dusting. Now, if you can see, and I'll bring the camera over, you have a much more defined rivet at this point. Okay, so go ahead and we'll do that on all the rivets. Remember, keep that arrow on too. I always used to, as I was painting, I always used to try and cut the paint and the air off at the same time. Not what you want. You want to shut the paint off first. Leave that air on. Kind of blast it, and that'll help you dry your paint as well. So everybody done so far with that? Give me a thumbs up if you're ready to move forward. Awesome. Okay, so now the next step, what we would normally do is now take and put a white highlight here. Because as the metal got dented, this side popped up a little bit. Instead of doing that, instead of messing around with any sort of white on this whatsoever, I'm now going to add about 3 drops of transparent base. If you don't have transparent base, you can just over reduce, but just be very, very careful that your paint doesn't get too thin and spiders out on it. So now what we have is a very, very weak black. I could probably even add a couple drops of reducer to that. And increase the transparency just that much more. I also could have used a transparent black. Now that's much weaker. So now, we're not going to worry about that white highlight there. We're going to make this highlight, again, just the same as we did before, through negative space. And I forgot to do this guy right here. And all I'm going to do is spray. I'm going to spray like a crescent moon right in here. I'm going to come away from it and a crescent moon just right in here. And that's going to give the illusion that this part is raised. Any questions on that so far? I actually went a little dark on that, but I'm actually trying to over-exaggerate this just a little bit for the camera, so I don't know how well this will show up. So I actually went a little darker than I probably should have. But now you can see how, now you can see how this, you can imagine how when you get this out in the sun, it's going to look much more natural instead of just spraying white there, white there, white. That'll look much more natural. PG, you good to go? Awesome. Okay, now we can start. Take our grunge stencil or anything you have to create texture. We can start making some imperfections in our metal. Here's one of my house. And again, this is with the same black. It's actually not quite as weak as I probably should have made it, but go with it. It'll be okay. And I'm just coming in lightly with this. Something to add some imperfections in that metal. All right, and at this point, we are ready for some rust. So let me clean this out. We're going to stop recording here for a second while I clean my airbrush out. And part 2, we will start on our rust.